Yep.
Okay.
And you're going to let me know when I hit share screen.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to the 5th and final City Island Nautical Museum 2021 Winter Web Series, America's Cup Past and Present. We are going to get started in just a second. We are waiting for everyone to log on. A few things to note. Your video and audio have been turned off for this event. We're doing the webinar feature, but please use the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. And also note that this event is being recorded. All right, we've got about 60 people on the call right now. And everyone, thank you for bearing with us. We had some technical difficulties, nothing like a last minute PowerPoint issue, video issue, and everything else. So, but very excited to be here tonight. Wish we were in person at the museum, but it's also great that we've been able to do all 5 of these different webinar series and to be able to be together with people from across the United States tuning in. I'm very excited once again to have my dad on with me and to have Dick Sadler and to be talking about a topic that I love, sailboat racing, and something that is happening right now, the America's Cup. So I'm going to turn it over to Barbara to give a formal introduction to our 2 speakers. And like I said, don't forget to use the question and answer box, and I'll make sure to be screening them and to be reserving time at the end so that the 2 hosts can answer the questions.
Okay, can I start? All right. Before I introduce this, let me thank Lauren and I, who put the webinar series together, and who we hope will continue to wonderful events for the Nautical far into the future. She is a 4th generation City Islander, which makes her father, Tom Nye, our interviewer tonight, a 3rd generation Islander, as well as president of the City Island Historical Society and curator of the Nautical Museum. He's a sailmaker, most career, but he's also created numerous wonderful exhibits in the museum. And as soon as we can reopen, hopefully later in the spring, you will enjoy seeing the photographs, objects, and actual boats and bags full of sails that the museum has on view. There's another multi-generational.
Barbara, sorry to cut you out. For some reason, your audio isn't coming through properly.
Okay.
Do you want to test?
Well, how do I fully, I think.
You're sounding a little bit clearer now. Yeah.
Just to hear the part about Tommy being a 3rd generation City Islander. Anyway, Dick Sadler is another
5th generation.
Dick Sadler is another multi-generational City Islander whose father was president of the Nautical Museum for many years after a career as a fireboat captain and a Hellgate pilot. Dick himself has preserved the nautical Sadler image by having been part of Ted Turner's crew on Courageous, 1977, where he served as a winch winder and was, along with the 12-meter sloop itself, the only other native of City Island embrace. Dick graduated from New York Maritime College and has taught college-level earth science, navigation, and other skills, as well as winning powerboat championships as navigator in 1982 and 1984, and serving as a meteorologist for the America's Cup Defenders in 1980 and 1983. The captain for the Circle Line, now on hiatus because of the pandemic, but he himself plenty busy as a master photographer. His incredible pictures of New York Harbor can be seen on his website at www.dicksadlerphotographer.com. Be sure to visit that. But in any case, now I turn, as a no generation calendar, I now turn it over to you guys.
floor is yours, and you can start sharing your screen now. If you can figure it out, you got it. All right.
Yay. Whew. Okay. We're there. Everybody, thank you. Thank you for being here. I want to thank first off the City Island Nautical Museum for sponsoring the history of this America's Cup. Because the City Island Nautical Museum has such an amazing history of City Island's heritage. So thank you, Tom, for being the historical backup, providing so many of these early slides, and Lauren for making this work in spite of me. A shout out for material and video stills that I found on the internet from americascup.com, from British Path Videos, Yachting World, Ineos Team UK, and NBC Sports, their courageous video. Folks, there's so much information about all of this in 170 years. It's impossible to say it all. So hopefully this presentation inspires you to explore it a little bit on your own. So without further ado, 170 years, here we go.
"170 years. That's a long time. 170 years ago today, the first car was still 35 years off. The Wright brothers' first flight, 52. That's 10 years before the start of the American Civil War. 45 before the birth of the modern Olympic Games. It's the year the refrigerator was invented. Times change, so they say. Well,
The America's Cup. The symphony of sea and sky and sail.
some things, they stay the same. 170 years ago, the oldest trophy in world sport was won for the very first time. A sailing race around the Isle of Wight in England. A radical-looking yacht called America beat the British on home waters and took the trophy back to the United States. The legend of the America's Cup had begun, and the winning of it has dominated the sport ever since. For well over a century, the New York Yacht Club welcomed challenger after challenger, but none could take the cup from the Americans. Until another radical yacht sailed into the history books again.
They have won the America's Cup. They have done it.
Just like the obsession to win, innovation in the America's Cup never stops. In 2021, the 36th America's Cup will be raced in a new class. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, they say. Sorry about that. We've reinvented the sailors too. A new breed of athlete, part machine, part scientist, engineered to perform at the edge. And the defenders this time? Watch out.
The America's Cup wrestles from the USA. The trophy belongs to New Zealand.
New Zealand have been on 6 America's Cup start lines in the last 7 editions. If there's a super team in this sport, these guys are it.
The America's Cup is now New Zealand's cup.
But keeping the cup won't be a walk in the park. Remember that 170-year-old drive to win? So, yeah, the America's Cup. Not your average sporting contest. For the 36th time, this is history in the making.
The America's Cup, 1851. The Great Exhibition was started in England, and it was set up by Prince Albert, who was the husband of Queen Victoria. And the idea was to showcase culture and industry to kind of show off what the British talent had. Well, there was an eclectic mix of famous people, from Karl Marx to Charles Darwin and Charles Dickens. And there was a boat race, a yacht race, and it was called the Royal Yacht Squadron's 100 Sovereigns Cup or the 100-pound Cup. The Americans misnamed it by calling it the 100 Guinea Cup because they thought guinea and sovereigns and pounds were all one and the same, and they weren't. So anyhow, we have Commodore John Cox Stevens, who formed a new club called the New York Yacht Club in 1844, and they put together a syndicate as a bunch of businessmen, and they commissioned the designing and building of the yacht America. And she was 101 feet long, and she was to sail to England and be at this great exhibition and show the United States shipbuilding skills. And in addition to that, since they were businessmen, they were looking to make some money by betting, like horse races, but with boat races. And the America cost, as it says there, about $20,000. So this is a shot of the original boat, stunning. But on the race line, you had 14 other competitors, much different than it is today. So it was a little difficult as she had to navigate the waters with so many others. And, you know, America was an underdog because, you know, Britain wanted to showcase that they were still queen of the seas. So at any rate, they had this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful loving cup. And it was called at the time, again, the 100-pound cup. So the race was around the Isle of Wight. And it's about 53 nautical miles that would start at Cowes, go clockwise around the island, all yachts doing the same thing, rounding the needles. And as they'd round the needles and then head for home, Queen Victoria from her perch in Cowes stretched out and looked and asked who's in first. And so the answer, the reply back to her was, Your Majesty, it's America. And she said, well, who's in second? Whoops, where did that go? So as she rounded the needles, and then the answer was, who's in second? And the answer back to Queen Victoria was, Madam, there is no second. That's kind of been a motto for the America's Cup from that point forward. Even though from one being in there, just being a part of the America's Cup in any shape or form is a privilege. So though the wording is there's no second, to be there is an honor and a privilege, and I'm humbled that I was able to be one of them. So America, the Yacht America, brings the America's Cup trophy back to the United States. But it was called the America's Cup because of the Yacht America, named after the yacht America that won the cup. So therefore, it was the America's Cup, not associated with the country, rather the boat. So now the next America's Cup race was going to be taking place in 1870. And it was going to be in New York Harbor. And it was starting off the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. And it would go out to Sandy Hook, then around Sandy Hook Light, and then back again with a total distance of about 34 miles. And at that point, I think there were 14 or 17 competitors also, but obviously you have a few more American boats this time. Nonetheless, the boat that was called to be part of this was Magic. And we talk about design and technology. And these boats, as you look at Magic and you look at America, they had a very fine entry. And the width of the boat didn't start to get wide until halfway, three-quarter, two-thirds of the way back. Their sails were much flatter. So there was tremendous high tech back in that day and age. And these were pilot boats that were navigating New York Harbor. And the idea of navigating New York Harbor was that as ships would come in to the port of New York, pilots were required to bring them into the harbor. So the pilot boats, these racing boats that we have now in the America's Cup back in 1870, these pilot boats were used, the fastest ones that got to the ships would get the job. So it was a race. The pilots would be racing amongst themselves. I remember my dad telling me in Long Island Sound, looking out on the east side, that pilots would stand with telescopes looking out to the ships, and then they'd jump in their boats and shoot out there. So at any rate, Tom, City Island starts to come into place. This I see is from David Carl's yard for the Magic. So what's up with that?
Well, David Carl rebuilt the Magic in 1869. Magic was originally called Madge and built in Philadelphia in 1857, designed and built for Frederick Loper. But it was originally a sloop, but David Carl converted the rig to a schooner rig, increased the length, increased the beam, and increased the draft, making it a centerboard schooner. Not with the purpose of defending the America's Cup, but for just improving the overall performance. When the first defense came about in 1870, when the Cambria came over from England to challenge, the Magic was in a fleet of the finest yachts in the New York Yacht Club, just as America had to face the finest yachts in the Royal Squadron, and she beat them all.
Wow.
Next 20 years, the America's Cup had no part at City Island, other than the sailmaker in England, Ratsey and Lapthorne, were building sails for all the challenges. And while they lost each time, the American sailors were very impressed with their sails.
So
Ultimately, Ratsey and Lapthorne came to City Island.
well, here America's Cup is has always had controversies, and for some reason there was a controversy between Defender and Valkyrie, and this picture is just stunning. I mean, the artwork, and it just shows you the majesties of these boats that they were using at the time. But as one boat against another, tempers flare. The tempers even flared to the spectator fleet. Not really, but I love this picture, so I needed an excuse to get it in the presentation. So there was a thing called the Sewanaka Rule, which as we go through the America's Cup, with the deed of gift, there's a specialty class that all the racers or the Cup committee decide on what the specs for the racing is going to be. And Nate Herreshoff, an incredible, brilliant designer from Bristol, Rhode Island, found loopholes within the rules to still develop extremely high-tech, fast yachts that could beat anybody, anywhere. And even with the high-tech, as we get in and show the J class, these boats had lengths of 125, 130 feet. They were marvels of machine, of sails, pushing the limits of modern design. So with City Island and the America's Cup, the involvement, as it shows here, was from 1870 to 1980. So Tom, as I slip through some of these slides, you can just speak and I'll just keep flipping. So go ahead.
Sure. Well, obviously, Intrepid, the two-time winner. But City Island had several yards, yacht yards, not big shipyards, but they had marine railways that could haul these America's Cup yachts. And they ultimately commissioned, service, and even broke up some of the contenders, challenges, and America's Cup yachts after they served that purpose. Vigilant was at City Island for quite some time at the Hawkins yard. She had several changes in rig. Henry Peepgrass, in fact, built some spars for Vigilant and later on for Defender and also Columbia. His reliance on the ways at the Robert Jacobs shipyard in October of 1903. And what's really impressive on this is that this was before travel lifts, and you see the size of that spar. The boat was over 145 feet overall, and there's over 30 men in the crew on deck, and the guys in the yard had this propped up perfectly, and she sat in storage at the Jacob yard for over 10 years
And
before the mate on the boat, Lem Miller, bought it and had it scrapped.
And this is one of the things, again, with a design marvel for the Reliance. The waterline itself, if you're looking at it, is 90 feet long. And when you use the end of the boom and the bowsprit, and I just looked at it, Tom, so it's on the fresh of my mind, it was like 200 feet long overall. And the advantage was that for the rules, you were only allowed a 90-foot waterline. So Herreshoff said, okay, 90 feet. But once that boat gets sailing and starts laying over, the sides of the boat are in the water, your waterline is increased dramatically. And physics of hydrodynamics says the longer the waterline, the faster they go. Well, it was interesting that Sir Thomas Lipton, who spent many times at the yards here in City Island with his boats at Shamrock, he has a quote that says, "They tell me that I have a beautiful boat with Shamrock 3. And what I want is a boat to lift the cup. I want her reliance. Give me a homely boat, the homeliest boat that ever was designed, if she's as fast as Reliance." Okay, Tom?
Here's several of the boats from 1903 to 1958 that all carried Ratsey and Lapthorne sails from Reliance, Resolute, Enterprise, Rainbow, Ranger, and Columbia. You'll note on the big sloops and on the J boats that the syndicates, while they had a ton of money, they kept very accurate and logs that showed the hours on the different sails. And some sails from some boats found a home on future boats because they only had so much, time on them, and they were pretty expensive even back then. Some of the guys in some of the sail offs and yacht yards, Miniford, Robert Jacob, Hawkins, and Ratsey and Lapthorne.
I mean, it was the bulk of City Island.
Oh yes, all City Island. And that Charlie Barr, who lived on the end of Cross Street on the island, was chosen in 1899 to defend on Columbia. His house later became the City Island Yacht Club, then Grant's, and then finally Jourdain's before the house was torn down, and they have homes down on a little bit of landfill at the end of Cross Street.
And he sailed for 3 campaigns. He sailed
Yes.
Columbia, and Reliance. And
He was by far the most popular and well-known captain of that era.
when we talk about the America's Cup sailors getting paid, we have to realize that before World War II, these were pro sailors, and Captain Charlie Barr was no different. He was a hired gun. In fact, he was a Scotsman that came over from England, and he came to the United States and then lived on City Island, just as you said. But he was the best of the best, and nobody could sail like him. And he was so well respected that the yacht Atlantic, 228 feet long, though not in the America's Cup, was captained by Captain Barr because he was the best. Then they had the Atlantic transatlantic race, and he held that record realistically 92 years later for a monohull to beat it. So quite amazing, and what a history of excellence and seamanship that Charlie Barr has. Go ahead, Tom.
He's more at the Robert Jacob shipyard with the Shamrock. Many of the Shamrocks, in fact, all of them were service and or stored at City Island during their campaigns. And some of them were broken up here also, Shamrock 2, Shamrock 4. Shamrock 5 made it back to England. But Shamrock 4, when Lipton came over one time, he had become good friends with Robert Jacob. And Robert Jacob finally asked me, hey, what would you like us to do with Shamrock 4? He says, break her up, Bob, and burn her in your fireplace. And in fact, after salvaging as much as he could off the boat, he did burn it in his fireplace. I spoke with Robert Jacob Sr.'s stepdaughter, who was 94 years old at the time in the early 90s. And she said that in fact, she remembers when they burned some of the wood in the fireplace at their Larchmont home.
Wow.
But you can see the Ratsey Loft in the last picture behind the crew on the Jacob's dock. Here is in the Ratsey Loft where they just finished the mainsail for the Enterprise. And as George Graham, who was the foreman at the time, recalled, it took 40 men, 4 days at 14 hours a day to complete the hand-sewn sail, which was a major feat when you consider that it's hand-sewn with 40 sailmakers that all had a very identical stitch to make the sail uniform.
And
Just
this
to
was
give
the
you an
width.
idea, yes, that's the panel width right there, as you can see the scrolling over.
So just if you think J boats are a little bit different than the J24, this is only about 3/4 of the way up, and it just gives you an appreciation of the size of these. And looking up is one thing, but when you're looking down, I ain't jumping from there. Go ahead, Tom.
Here we are at the Robert Jacobs Shipyard with the Enterprise that was built of steel, but they're stepping one of the 2 wooden masts that had been built by Henry B. Nevins. They decided that they were going to try a light and a heavy wooden mast to see how it would affect performance. As it turns out, by the time the boat was defending, it went to a duraluminum mast, which was just coming into prominence then. In the background, though, was the Corona, which was a contender back in the early 1890s, and it became the barracks for the crew while the boat was at the Robert Jacobs Shipyard. The Benjamin F. Packard was behind that offshore. And here we are with Sherman Hoyt, Harold Vanderbilt, and George Ratsey behind on board Rainbow, inspecting, I guess they're going to inspect sails. But that's 34. Go ahead.
Let's see what it was like back in those days.
Yankee. Her skipper, Mr. Vanderbilt, is at the helm, whilst the crew with a hand winch sheets in the mainsail. Rainbow has a sail area of 7,555 square feet and a 165-foot mainmast down which you can get a bird's eye view of the yacht. She beat Yankee by just 1 second, and so's chosen to meet the challenger. And now let's take you on board Mr. T.O.M. Sopwith's Endeavour. The amateur crew are hoisting sail for a tryout in American waters, whilst at the helm is Mr. Sopwith, who will skipper her in her attempt to wrest from America that elusive trophy. The crew are on their toes all the time, working with a will that makes for success. Look down her steel mast. See the beautiful lines of her hull. She's
And what's amazing is really the grandeur of these J boats when we think of 1930, 1934, and 1937, and the monster size, 120 feet to 135 feet. And the old videos, though they're great for historical purposes and get an idea that, you know, what it was like back then. But this is a reconditioned Endeavour, Thomas Sopwith's boat, and Yachting World, I believe, created this video, so we have a modern version of what these boats look. But this is the actual Endeavour from back in the 30s.
If there's one yacht that would top most people's wish list to sail aboard, it has to be the J-Class Endeavour. And to do so in 15 knots wind, off Portugal, in sunshine, full sail, is a dream come true. When you take the
something to be said about the 30s. So World War II was approaching. America's Cup was on hold. Many of these amazing, stunning J-class sailed, as I said, the 30, 34, and 37 America's Cup, but they were scrapped, much needed for the war effort because many of them were made out of metal. So the next races wouldn't be until 1958, the birth of the 12-meter class. And that particular class was in place for 29 years till 1987, spanning 10 cup matches. Tom?
Okay, here we have 1958. By this time, sailcloth, the Dacron was coming in, and Ratsey's, which had an edge on all the other sailmakers up until this point, with their complete, monopoly on the premium cotton and Egyptian cotton. All of a sudden, they were on the same playing field as other sailmakers in dealing with the new synthetic materials of Dacron. Here, Colin Ratsey is bending on the new main on Columbia. By the time the races got underway, they had it all figured. And there were different types of Dacron. This one particular Dacron that they used on the main had a purple tinge to it, and they called it the Purple People Eater, based on the popular song at that time in '58.
I remember a story from my dad where he used to go down to the Ratsey docks, and he was actually hired to watch. He was hired by the old man, George Ratsey, to watch over Colin Ratsey as a youngster in a small dinghy sailing around the little basin off Ratsey's. And Dad would say, he gets stuck underneath the dock of Nevins every so often, so we'd have to go and rescue him. So I guess he worked it out. He's in the America's Cup.
Right. By the way, his uncle, George Collin, was on the Scepter in '58, the Challengers. So there were Ratseys on both boats.
That would have made an interesting dinner table. Here it is, what it was really like. This was in that big shed that says Miniford's right off City Island Avenue. It's amazing, the artisan craftsmen that we had here on City Island, internationally known. If you wanted the best boat built, you came to City Island, period. That's why the 12s were built here. What do you think of these two guys, Tom?
Two guys that you wouldn't find a better pair for building your 12-meter, Olin Stevens and Paul Coble, or Nils Halverson in this one. Nils Halverson was the legendary loftsman at Nevins for years. He lived right up the street from Miniford, right across the street from where I am, in fact. But he was legendary for the designs, and the Stevens, Olin, and Rod had complete confidence in Nils. At this time, Nils' eyesight was going bad, and he had to get like inches away from the lines that he was drawing. But they still had all the confidence in him.
And he still did it because he was the best.
Yeah.
So here with Intrepid, as again, technology, design, that's what the America's Cup has been built on. This, all of a sudden, Olin Stevens design, and by the way, Olin Stevens started designing these America's Cup boats with the J boats in 1937. And he went all the way to 1980 for at least the America's Cup winning boats. Amazing the span that man, Olin Stevens, had. So here, his breakthrough is a separate keel and a separate rudder. And that was major and for that time. And it was just so fast compared to the other boats that had it all one piece. So again, design, technology. And Tom, all of a sudden now, Miniford's made a change. What do you think?
It's courageous. The first 12 built of aluminum at City Island. At Directors, they were building Valiant and Mariner, but Courageous was the overall top boat in the the early aluminum 12s. Intrepid, along with Courageous, were the only two-time winners. And long after the boats had gone to aluminum, Intrepid remained competitive as the last wooden 12.
But the big thing is that Miniford saw that technology and design and construction and materials were changing. So in order to stay alive, they changed with them.
And
Courageous.
they had new personnel that were experts in that.
Absolutely. This is Courageous was just, I fell in love with when I first saw her. I mean, the lines of her just reminded me of a dolphin. And she went through the water with the same kind of ease and beauty and swiftness. Owen Stevens, as I just spoke about, amazing. The reign that he had in design, he was the best. And I was 23. America's Cup 1977, Newport, Rhode Island. Here we'd haul the boat out, and Olin made sure that things were just as they ought to be. So we have an America's Cup crew, but that's not quite, this is your typical America's Cup crew. But then again, this is Courageous. We were not your typical America's Cup crew. For a reason that, you know, you kind of see when you look at the picture, we kind of got adopted by the community and by the people. Ted Turner was in a league by himself. He spoke his mind. He didn't care about the way things ought to be. So we were definitely a little bit outside of the box, and the people loved it because we were just down home, regular people. Now, Ted was the captain. He was in charge, but he was just one of us. And that's what was neat with all of us on board this boat, is that every one of us was some kind of a champion in one form or another. But yet when we all got together, each of us was just humble with each other. There were no standouts. There were no rock stars. We were a team. We were united together. And every so often, with me being the youngest guy, sometimes being the youngster, you do stupid youngster things. But I had a whole team of big brothers. They were all older than me. So let me tell you, they let me know in a hurry. And it was great. I had the best sailing big brothers that I could ever hope for. So let's see what it was really like during the America's Cup. And what made Ted so special.
The first day of practice in Newport, I had all the crew on the boat. He says, I want you guys to look around. Look over at the tender. There's no spare crew. We have 11 people on this boat. This 11 guys is going to do it together, or we're going to fail together. There will be no substitutes. There will be no changes.
And that's how Ted worked with his people. There was a tremendous, tremendous amount of trust. As you look, I see all of us hiked out here. This was a practice run with our manager, Max O'Mara, who passed away last year. So memories and thoughts and missing him like crazy. But here he's just sitting and checking out the action. But if you look at us, as I see this picture, how we're so interwoven and tight. And that, in just a few words, kind of describes our team. We were interwoven, we were tight, we were team. It's what bonded us. We were not individuals, we were a team. And Ted was the leader, and he was a great inspiration for each of us. We wanted to follow him. Now here I am back here behind Ted, or right next to Ted, hiking out over the side. It was blowing and a lot of seas, and the bow was punching through the waves. So Ted says, we need to get some weight back here. I need a volunteer, somebody to come back aft. Before he could even finish the sentence, I jumped up on the grinder pedestal, ran across the boom on the back deck and plopped down and said, okay, we got somebody. And it was a little self-serving because that was the driest spot on the boat. It was wet up there when it was rough, believe me. So we were not pros. We were amateurs. I mean, yes, we were the best sailors, but a pro is somebody who gets paid. So we did not get paid. We did all the work ourselves. And even Ted is right there with us. Like I said, he was one of us. That's what made him so special. So we pull the boat out every other day. If we kept it in any longer than that, little barnacle crustaceans would form on the hull. So it was a lot, but it was a labor of love. So we get to go sailing, and that was the best part. She sailed like no other. Her lines, her majesty, her beauty, her symmetry was just really poetic. I can't think of describe it any other way. And this picture, by the way, is on City Island Avenue besides. Now, this is called the Demitas Trophy, or Demitas Cup. And what they do during the America's Cup summer is they get 2 representatives from each America's Cup team, and they put them in these little dinghies called diodaos. And a lot of people would think, oh, well, big deal. Ted was, made a lot of money and he could buy his way into the America's Cup and get a whole lot of good people around him and make him look good. Let me tell you something. Ted Turner in 1965 was the Flying Dutchman, which is a high performance small dinghy, 2-man dinghy, world champion. 1966, big boats. He won the SORC, the Southern Ocean Racing Conference. He won it. 1970, he was the 5.5, another high performance with trapeze, I believe, meter Gold Cup. He won first, or the Flying Dutchman had the trapeze on it. America's Cup, of course, 1977. The storm-ravaged Fastnet race over in England or off England, 1979. He won that. When boats sunk, people died as a storm ravaged that race. 4 times he was the United States Sailing Yachtsman of the Year, 4 times. So Ted wasn't just a rich guy that could buy the best. He was the best. And here in this dinghy, Ted is in 15, Gary Jobson, our tactician, in number 12. Ted was first in this whole regatta. Gary was second. That was kind of the handwriting on the wall for us for the summer of 77. First and second in amongst the other competitors of the other America's Cup boats racing in that America's Cup. So we go out and we practice some more. And okay, now we get to enjoy time. Ted was the owner of the Atlanta Braves, and with the Atlanta Braves, they weren't doing so hot, and we were doing really good. In fact, I think they were last at the time. So he said, I need to invite them up and show them what it's like to win. So he did. And I had opportunity to be with Hank Aaron and Ted Turner. And as you can tell by my outfit, it looks like I just came from an audition from Saturday Night Fever, but it's okay. John Travolta got the part, so I was back in the America's Cup. Just kidding, but 1977, that was the style. So we go out racing and practicing some more. And here we're against Enterprise, and you notice there's one boat that seems to be hiking and one boat they're watching us. So we're number 26. Now, Gary Jobson, who was the tactician of the boat, had an amazing chemistry with Ted, but he could also call the shots like nobody's business. He had an incredible intuition, and we'd always wonder, how did you, time after time after time, he put Ted in the right spot at the right time. And he had a little help as you look out on the water there. So finally, after a summer of trials against Independence, and which was Ted Hood's boat, and Lowell North, which was
Enterprise.
Enterprise. Thank you, Tom. A little brain freeze there. Those were the 2 major sailmakers, East Coast, West Coast. That's what the whole play was all about. The 2 big guns, not this little guy, Ted Turner and Courageous. He lost in 1974. There's nothing in him. So anyhow, after a long fought summer, we were selected, and there's no greater feeling than the New York Yacht Club selection committee with their straw hats and blue blazers and white shirts and ties come over to your dock and say, Ted, you and your crew, congratulations, you've been selected to defend for us, the America's Cup. This is a shot of one of the races of the actual America's Cup. Yeah, I had a little camera just stashed, and when the time was easy before we actually started racing, this is LJ, our bowman, on the bow. Just took a quick shot. This is Australia, and you can see the crew out there, or rather all the spectator boats. And I think the toughest part, and there's a video on that coming up, which is your first race. Your first race is always, you don't know really what you've got. You really don't know what they've got. And they're going to be experiencing that in this year, in a few weeks over in New Zealand. Same thing. We really don't know what the other boat has. And point to reference, if ever you're in the America's Cup, make sure you invite your mom. Ted was such a brilliant helmsman, and it took incredible focus, which a lot of people don't realize when you're driving these 65-foot 12 meters. He used to complain he couldn't watch the race or know what's going on a whole lot, because his focus had to be on every single wave, just like sailing a dinghy, every single wave, and watching the luff of the sail. His focus was intense, and he's just, that's what made him Ted. So let's see what it was like back in 1977.
After 3 months of defying expectations, they now had to live up to them. On September 13th, the first race of U.S. versus Australia for the 1977 America's Cup began.
Australia beat Courageous to the starting line, but soon tacked while Ted Turner helped Courageous into the wind. He stayed that way 20 minutes, an eternity in yacht racing, before tacking to starboard.
To me, the most exciting moment was the first windward leg of the first race.
When we came off the starting line, they were beating us, and you could just hear this quiet settle over the boat. It was like, holy crap, they're faster than us.
Australia was billed as the best light air boat among the 12-meter yachts.
Basically, Ted asked me, he said, should we change sail? I said, I think they said, only if we do it perfectly.
And I remember Ted saying, oh man, we got to change while we're racing. What happens if we screw it up? And LJ up on the bow says, Ted, I haven't been out here all summer long practicing to not use it at the most critical moment. Make the call, we'll make the change. I promise we won't screw it up.
That was the cool part, to make it sing, to make it a Stradivarius, to make it do what it was designed to do. And you're the engine in it that can do that.
Finish says, when are we going to change sails? That we just did. It was that automatic. We gained a little bit, so right away I felt this is ours to lose.
I remarked to Ted, and I hadn't looked at him for a long time. Sweat was kind of coming out of his hat, and I said, they're not slow. And Turner remarked, yeah, but they're not fast either.
So we actually win the America's Cup, 4 races. Best of 7, we won 4 in a row. But as we finished over the finish line, Ted wanted to wait for the Australian boat, for the Australia. And they were our best friends. We had such a camaraderie with them. Yes, we were competitors on the race course, but once the racing was over, we were the best of friends. And that's the epitome of sportsmanship. The epitome of sportsmanship. Buddy Melgus, a world-class Olympic sailor, and also won the America's Cup, I believe it was 1995. He had words that says, you know when you've won the regatta, when your competitors are glad that you won. So that was just led by Ted. He generated that atmosphere between all of us. So anyhow, we were heading into the harbor, and Ted said, hold up, and we waited for Australia. So here they come right up alongside of us just before we get into Newport Harbor. And Australia starts singing Dixie, in honor of Ted's Southern heritage. And so we in turn start singing Waltzing Matilda to the best that we could. And the two of us went side by side into New York Harbor. It was just special. And the harbor was just lighting up with everything, with people everywhere, cannons blasting, horns blaring, people standing in any free spot or boat that they could find. People were everywhere. Just before the America's Cup, like the day or two before and the day after the America's Cup, Ted and Alan Bond, the syndicate head for Australia, got together and said, you know, let's have a lunch together. You know, we get along so well, let's have a lunch together. So here we're having a lunch together. And I think this was, you know, the day after the America's Cup. Again, sportsmanship, loving your competitor, enjoying your competitor, loving the sport, and knowing that each of you are the best there is, and you face it off and you duke it out on the water, but on shore, what a great thing to just be such friends with your competitors. And in a lot of races throughout the world and different America's Cups, you know, you don't always see that. So we had something that was precious, and I'll treasure it forever. So we have reunions, and as we have reunions, we get together, and after a few years, some of these stories get just embellished a little bit. So Robbie Doyle, the sailmaker, and his wife, Janet, had these shirts made for all of us. It kind of tells a story in a heartbeat. But one story which is really sweet, and again, it's about Ted's leadership ability. Con Finley, a two-time gold medalist, crew member on the boat. He'd mentioned that there was a problem up on the bow at one point, and it messed things up a bit. So, you know, Ted, after things settled out, said to them, "Do you know what you did wrong?" And the answer was yes. And as Con says, that was the end of the story. And that's just who Ted was. He trusted people to do the best, to figure it out. And that trust is what bonded us. I mean, that's what really, really, really made Courageous a winner. Yeah, she was a fast boat. Gary was brilliant with his calling the shots, and Ted with his sailing abilities, and Robbie with his sailmaking, and all of us just being a part. It was basically the sum of the parts became greater than the whole. We all achieved levels together as a group so much better than any of us could have ever done individually. So again, more than thanks that I was able to be a part of it. So during our reunions, we do get a chance to go sailing. Ted had one after 10 years, and it was so successful that ever since then, after the 10th in 1987, every 5 years he has a reunion, and part of that reunion is going sailing on Courageous, who's a magnificent racehorse. She is kept up, and she races currently in 12-meter regattas, which are very cool at a Newport. And so we get to use it for the time that we have the reunion up in Newport. And yeah, Ted picks up the bill for everything. And people say, well, he's a rich guy, and of course he can afford it. There's a lot of rich guys that can afford it. Ted's the one that does it. So one of these days, as Richie, one of the crew members, who's right there tailing and holding the line, I had another picture which got lost in some of our technical difficulties, which showed us sailing at 18 or 20 knots during one of our reunions. And he says, you know, one of these days they're going to take the keys away from us. But so far, they haven't. And what do you do after you sail, especially 40 years later? Hanging out on the front lawn of the New York Yacht Club, looking out over Newport Harbor. That's about as good as it gets. So, in all of the America's Cup history, there's only 3 yachts that have defended for the America's Cup and won twice. Columbia, skippered by City Island, Charlie Barr. and intrepid, built in City Island, and courageous, with Ted Hood in 1974, and of course, Ted Turner in 1977. So 1983, times move forward. With my meteorology, I created a Newport Weather Center, and the New York Yacht Club, I offered if they'd like weather forecasts, so they let me into their committee boat, and each morning I'd give them a briefing to help them understand what was going on with the weather out there. So that was a pleasure, and these guys were great. They were the best. Their expertise, their skills, their professionalism, their fairness. Not enough great words to say about these guys. So 1983, the race of the century as it was billed, Dennis Conner, defending for the United States, fell to Australia 2. She had a radical design, as we've been speaking all along, totally different from what anybody else had, and best of 7 won, and it went to 7 races. It was 3-3 tie. This is the last race, number 7. Everybody was at the edge of their seats, but yet Australia 2 prevailed. But with all credits to Dennis, let me tell you, to win 3 races against a boat like Australia was at the time was nothing short of him being, the best in the world at that time. So New York Yacht Club on board the committee boat, Black Knight, we offered a salute as Australia 2 crossed the line, and the New Year and the America's Cup is now leaves and departs after 132 years, the United States. And with that, I got to stand with the rest of these gentlemen, and what a pleasure it was, and what a thrill, in spite of heartache. Let me tell you, it was mixed emotions going all over the place. So the Australia wins the cup, 4 wins to 3, ending a 32-year winning streak, 132 years, but it's okay. Well, not okay. My point is that whenever the cup is removed from the New York Yacht Club, the expression was said that the head of the skipper who loses the cup will go in its place. And this is the boat that won it, the keel. This is, was in a museum at this point in time because she was so famous for winning the America's Cup. And they painted her like this just to make her look the same as all the other boats when she heeled over, because helicopters could see it. But she had a reverse keel and wings on it, and without getting too much involved, it was a radical design. Again, there's just so much that I can say on any one slide, but she could spin faster, she could withstand more wind, she could tack faster. So it was a breakthrough, and they won. So Dennis Conner's head was in its place at the New York Yacht Club, but much to Dennis's credit, the next America's Cup, now in Perth, Australia, or Fremantle, I believe, blowing like stink with what's called the Doctor, and Dennis won 4-0 and brought the America's Cup back to the United States. So kudos, Dennis. You fell, but you didn't stay. You got up and you won it back. So there's a lot of court cases and battles, design interpretations, and people trying to do one thing or another. So that was no different. Cat against the monohull. To explain this slide would really take a half an hour. So we'll just say that there's been controversy, design differences, and court battles throughout the America's Cup. And 1988 was no excuse. But the Cat, Dennis Conner, United States, won. So things happen in the America's Cup, and some of them are not all that good.
Now about halfway up, leg number 3, the second beat to windward. It's getting fresher. 18 knots, gusting 20, and the seas are getting bigger. This is becoming quite a tough test now. And Team New Zealand comfortably in front of One Australia. Now, there seems a problem on One Australia. See, the backstay's gone loose and the forestay. There is definitely a problem aboard One Australia. Their rigging has gone slack. Why? The boat is turning into a banana. There's real problems here. The crew are summoning the chase boat to come alongside. There are real problems. The boat has snapped in two. The structure has given in. One Australia is taking on a lot of water. This is very serious. Well, now the crew have got to move quickly. They could be in serious trouble, and they're getting off quickly. They could be in danger if they get caught on that rig. They've got to get off the boat fast. The boat is bending. It is going down fast. Look at the three on the foredeck. What on earth are they doing? They've got to get off. There's the Team New Zealand chase boat. And they've gone along to pick up the crew. This is incredible. A Formula One racing yacht is breaking up before our eyes and sinking. This is yachting's answer to the Titanic. Look at it go down. They're panicking on getting the crew, making sure they've got the heads, but look how quickly the boat is being sucked into the Pacific. This is incredible. Now you see it, now you don't. In just over a minute from the time the crew started jumping off, the boat has disappeared. In just over 30 seconds from the time the deck was awash, One Australia has been sucked to the bottom of the Pacific.
So, oops.
Wind, speed, and
Not quite sure what happened, but let's see if I can. Shoo, okay. Don't worry, I was more scared than everybody else. Anyhow, you can see things happen. Things happen so quick. And you can imagine from that video, if one of the crew members happened to get snagged in a line or a cable or anything, you know, there's no coming back from that. So that's why teamwork and working together is so critical. And practice. And these boats are made just to a fine edge to be able to be made as light as possible. Unfortunately, she had some structural weakness in the heavy seas and whatnot. So for these years, 92 and 95, 2000, 2003, and 2007, once again, before we had America's Cup 12 meters, now this next class, which is the one that is the International America's Cup class, and that's the one that broke up with that type of boat. So again, design modification changes. You can see the diagram with the keel and the rudder. You know, things move forward. Sailboats change. And they change so much that now all of a sudden we're starting to use catamarans, trimarans, as they, you know, look at the rules and try to see what they can do to, you know, keep within the rules, but just create the fastest boats possible. So here you've got a trimaran and a catamaran, and but the trimaran won, and that was United States. So all of a sudden now we're dealing with new boats, new type of boats, and let's see what the heck is going on. The America's Cup has changed forever.
Any preconceived ideas of sailing should just go out the window. It's like a whole new sport. We're doing 45 knots of boat speed, which is just like lightning on the water.
The boats are very, very fast. We essentially sail in a hurricane all day. If you make a mistake, I mean, you get absolutely punished for it.
What we're doing now is...
So sailing has changed forever. Even the gear has changed, our equipment. This was 2013, a little bit different from what we were wearing. Here you have these padded vests with shielding, because if the boat stops short, you go flying, broken ribs instantly. Helmets, you've got oxygen masks for obvious reasons. If the boat capsizes or you get pinned underneath it, you need to be able to breathe, because sometimes in an emergency, you just don't have time to get out before you're underwater. So that was a major, major improvement. So once again, America's Cup has changed. These are, it's what the team looked like. Again, this is 2013. It's actually, they look like just, regular Joes sailing. And, my heart goes out to them. So at any rate, and now this is 2021. I mean, this looks like straight out of Star Wars. Whew. A little bit different from, the 1930s, to say the least. Interesting. Okay, now 2021, the AC-75s, cutting edge, Auckland, New Zealand.
The AC-75s are absolutely incredible machines. The boats are pushing the boundaries big time.
Oh, the boats are beasts. I mean, they're big, man, powerful boats. There's a lot going on.
It's an absolute weapon.
They are amazing. They're a full machine, probably more complex than a Formula One car.
When you go off the dock on the AC-75, the day is already packed with pressure. The switch gets turned on pretty quickly. And it will expose weaknesses all the way through the team.
Very, very sophisticated boats, a lot of componentry. The hydraulics, the electronics is at a level, quite frankly, we've never seen.
I was obviously involved early days with both the Challenger record and ourselves. They really wanted a monohull and we really wanted it to be high performance. So we've kind of ended up in a really good place, I feel.
So, how is this wild, crazy, new design technology even possible? Well, we assemble the greatest scientific minds known to man. Let's learn how these things can fly.
We are now in the new age of America's Cup racing. We are not floating, we're flying. The new AC-75 racing boats will reach 60 miles an hour with no engine, travelling up to 4 times the speed of the wind. Lift is the same force a plane uses under its wings to take off and maintain flight. We want to foil because pushing a boat through water is harder than through air. So how do we get the boat up in the air and out of the water? We use exactly the same technology as an aircraft wing. Just as an aircraft wing will lift a plane up off the ground, the foils of an America's Cup boat will lift it out of the water. The foils of our America's Cup boat are more accurately called hydrofoils because they work in the water. The secret to both of them is the shape. Aerofoils and hydrofoils use their shape to guide the wind or water around them to generate the lifting force to get the planes or boats in the air. The double-skinned soft wing sail is our engine. The force it generates to move the boat at breakneck speeds is thrust. It works exactly the same way as an aircraft wing. It's just rotated to stand straight up rather than laid down flat. As the wind flows over the sail, it generates thrust in a forward direction. An aircraft needs an engine to push the air over its wings fast enough to lift it off the ground. The wing sail on our America's Cup race boat generates thrust from the natural wind blowing past it. The more the wind blows, the more we can catch to turn into thrust to push the boat forwards. When the boat's going fast enough, the hydrofoils will then be able to create lift to get the boat out of the water. And there you have it, the boat that flies.
And just for anybody looking at a clock, we've got about probably 5 minutes, if I had to say 7 minutes tops for the finish of the program here. So at any rate, this is what makes them fly. This is called the foil arm, and this is the foil wing, and these are the foil flaps. Now, this area, the arm is supplied commonly to everybody. They all have the same thing, and it's gone through some very high-tech standards and testing. And at any rate, that was done in Italy, and all the syndicates were involved in that design and understanding of it. Now, these foils, which they're allowed, I think it's 6 different shapes that they've been experimenting through the time. And these flaps, just like the flap on the back of an airplane wing, when you look out your window and you watch those flaps of the airlines going back and forth, that's what helps rise it up and down, and the trim of the boat. It's amazing. It literally really is a boat that's flying. And this unit here, the wings and the flap, combined total is about 2,000 pounds for this one, 2,000 pounds for the other. The full weight of the entire boat is about 13,000 pounds. So play from current slide. Okay, now this is what moves those arms back and up and down. It's a battery-powered foil-arm camp mechanism, and there's hydraulics within these cylinders. Because of the tremendous weights and loads that are on them, you have to have hydraulics, and these are operated by batteries, which the trim of a switch with the guy who's running the flight control handles these. So as you see, these are grinders here, and you'll see grinders grinding on these boats different from the time when I did it in 1977. These grinders, what they're doing is they're filling or adding pressure in the hydraulic system. And with that pressure upon the hydraulics, they can move the hydraulic from one side to another, thereby affecting any adjustments that they need above decks for the sails and so forth. So they're grinding constantly. It's not for sail adjustment, but for the mechanism of the hydraulics, so that a sail controller can then electronically adjust the sails. So these guys just keep grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding. Anyhow, so what's also special about these boats is they have 2 mainsails. Here you have like a D-section mast. Previously, in the old days, it was just 1 sail coming off. Here you have 2. And the reason for 2, just like an aircraft wing, you have a better foil shape. And what this better foil shape does is here, where the wind moves slower in the shorter distance, it creates a high pressure. And along the backside, it has to move faster, so that creates a low pressure. And pressure goes from high to a low, so that's what creates lift. So basically, the more lift you have, the greater forward thrust, which equals speed. Now here's a picture showing the 2 mainsails. You see this front mainsail, or the windward mainsail, is much flatter than the leeward shape, which is much fuller or rounded. Again, the airplane wing. And there is 18 different controls, 18 different controls to create different shapes of the mainsail and to trim it in and out. 18 different controls, 2 mainsail skins, amazing. So once again, stuff happens out there.
Follows. Golden speed here for the tech, 20 to boundary.
40 seconds before the top mark. We're sailing along at about 12 knots of wind, and everything's pretty benign.
Heading towards the top gate for the last time, 35 knots, American Magic. This will be a huge weight off the shoulders.
About 20 seconds before the left turn, breeze comes up to 16, 17, and you can hear the audio on board, and the breeze goes left, so you hear a little bit of high pitch from easing the jib. As we go into the maneuver, Dean makes a clear call, left turn. He'll stay to leeward for the bear away. And as we go to bear away, basically, about a 23.5 knot puff dropped down on top of us, and over she went.
Oh, hang on. American Magic. My goodness.
They are over.
They capsized. They capsized.
My most vivid memory is when I heard Dean say, "I've lost the rudder."
Oh, I lost the rudder here.
I basically, I'm clipped into the boat, so I went to eject myself out of the boat, and my clip didn't come undone, which straight away got my cackles up, and so then I went for the knife, and the cockpit filled up straight away, and it very quickly went from everything's in okay to a pretty high fever from my perspective, as I straight away was underwater and pinned underneath the mainsail. As Sicho went by me, he could see that my head was underwater and that I was trapped. Cooper grabbed his knife and cut the left one and got me out. From there, all four of us popped out from underneath the mainsail and did the head count, and we were all, everybody was safe.
We counted all 11 people, so it looked like all people were accounted for, all 11 crew members.
Very quickly, it became apparent that Patriot had suffered some major damage, and when we got her upright, it was clear that there was a hole, and it very quickly went to a rescue operation of the boat. At the time, it felt like we had one air pocket in the boat that was keeping her afloat. I think we all thought the boat was going to sink. When Gies raised the orange buoy to the top of the mast, that to me is like a telltale sign that, and he's one of the boat captains. That's a telltale sign that he's preparing for something that is inevitable.
So, about 4 minutes, and we're done. This is what she looked like when she was hauled out of the water. She was sinking. One thing that's later on in this clip, which of course we didn't have time for, is that with the condition of this boat, Terry was first off, he was visibly moved, as you could tell. You're underwater, you're pinned, you're locked in. And yes, you have oxygen, but all of a sudden, it's when a crisis happens, sometimes you don't always do, what you hope to do. So once again, teamwork, crewmen paying attention, got him out. I'm sure even if he didn't, Terry would have, his survival skills would have kicked in, but still, things happen. They happen quickly in any boat. So you just really, really, really have to always, prepare for the worst. Enjoy the best, but prepare for the worst, no matter what kind of boat you sail. So this is what she looked like when she came out of the water. And but what Terry was really making a point of later on in this video was that everybody on the water when she was, about to sink just arrived from all the teams, all the other competitors, from the Coast Guard, from the police, from the support crews. Everybody just came in. All of a sudden, it was, let's just do what we've got to do. And the same thing was on shore. What can we do to help you guys get back on track? What can we do? Came from every single team, every individual. And that was really special. And it was great for me to hear that too, that, people didn't separate the America's Cup as winning at all costs. Here, once again, you had teamwork, you had sportsmanship, you had everybody pulling together, to help one another. So that was a tragic time, but it was also turned into a very special, precious moment that I think was good for the sport. So, American Patriot, she never came back from that. I mean, she did. They got her out on the water, amazing, amazing. And she was pretty close to form, but she was not up to the full scale that she was before that crash. These boats are not designed to take that kind of a crash. And, there's, so she came down on her side. Again, these things are built specifically, very lightly, as much as they can. So anyhow, American Magic, America's hopes to win the America's Cup back, then were eliminated as she was out of the trials. So next we have Ineos Team Britannia, the British team, and they look good for a point in time, very good, just as America Magic looked great for a point in time, but they were eliminated too by the Italians, Italy's Luna Rossa. And Jimmy Spithill has been in he was in the last America's Cup in Bermuda, the one where he lost, and then he was in the America's Cup in 2013 when they came back from, I think it was 8-1, and they came back and won 8 races, and they won the America's Cup being down 8-1. So Jimmy Spithill now is with Italy. So again, hired guns seems to be the name of the gun with the America's Cup. Hopefully some point in the future that can change. And as Gary Jobson has said in earlier videos, boy, wouldn't it be nice? I think it would be great for the sport if everybody could be, national talent. And that would really pep up the league. So Emirates, Team New Zealand, they are the defenders. They will be fast. Once again, don't know what each one's got, but Emirates has been around. They know what they're doing. And why do I say that? This is Peter Burling. He's the 2015 Moth World Champion. This is a Moth. And, if you notice any similarities between a Moth and an AC-75, it's no coincidence. New Zealand was responsible for selecting this kind of boat, and the Italians were on board to it. So each and every team actually has world champion or close to it Moth sailors on board. So this guy's good. I think New Zealand's going to be fast. If you're fast, everything you do looks like you're a genius on the water. Speed is king. So when they don't sail, they have simulators. A little bit different from 1977. And you have umpires on the water. So you've got these rib boats that are doing the same speeds, up to capable of doing 60 miles an hour just to keep up. And there's umpires on the water so that they can be right next to them. They've got one boat for each. So there's 2 umpires out there trying to get in the right spot at the right time to be able to observe the action. And these rib boats, I mean, these are like offshore powerboat races. I mean, they're rigged for speed and punishment. And Yanmar has, over 2,000 horsepower of engine in there so that they can do just that. They also have umpires in a room where they have video monitors and all sorts of tech support so that they can watch it through GPS and get another type of view, just like with NFL football, watching it from different vantage points, different ways, so that they can make the best call immediately on the water where you have flashing red and green lights determining if they made a foul or not. So The America's Cup courses out there off Auckland, New Zealand, numerous different courses depending upon the wind speed and the wind strength. And then you have the actual race course itself. And what you have is you have a starting line here and you go up against into the wind for about 1.8 miles. Then you come down away from the wind, then you go back up again, and then you come back down again, and then you go up again and down again. So basically windward leeward 3 times. And the total distance is about, 10.5 miles or so. And it takes approximately 23 minutes. So when you watch these races, it's hopefully it's going to be close racing, because if it's not, it may be a little boring, even with the speeds. But these are technological marvels. They're exciting to watch. Hopefully there'll be a boat race between 2 boats of equal stature. So what's my point here? What's the takeaways? We see all this technology, all this money, for what? All for the desire to win the America's Cup. So what's the point? The point is, remember your roots, why you started sailing, or why you may start in the future. Why? Because it's fun. Don't ever, ever, ever lose that. There's camaraderies and friendships that last a lifetime. Okay, stuff happens. So what do? Well, don't give up the ship. Remember, stuff happens to really, really good sailors also. And it happens more than once. It even happens to pro America's Cup sailors. So you get out there and you practice a little bit more. And then perhaps one day, you may be able to sail into the America's Cup yourself. So for my efforts, for my time in 1977, I thank God for an opportunity that I was just very thankful for, with the group of people and with the team, and with the ability to share all of that with all of you folks tonight. So thank you. Sorry for the delay. I know it ran a little bit long. Hopefully anyhow, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dick, so much. What a great presentation, and so many different lessons as you were going through the slides that I connected with as a sailor myself, and having so many of my teammates actually on the webinar tonight, and thinking about, just the situations that you find yourself on the water, and just, teamwork is really what gets you through those difficult situations. So I guess if anyone has any questions, we could stay on for a little bit longer if you don't mind, Dick and Dad, seeing what the audience has. Let's see. So how often are the America's Cup races held?
It varies, generally 3 or 4 years. And there's different websites that you can look, and what I'm going to include, which Lauren is going to post with this YouTube, is different websites where you can learn more about the America's Cup. Again, they're so exhaustive of stuff, but I'll link different sites. I'll also link about a dozen videos on these particular boats and some others as well, so that, again, just more information for you, but generally 3 to 4 years.
Okay. And Dad, where was the Jacobs Boatyard located on City Island?
It's where Consolidated is now. That's the oldest yard. It was originally the David Carl, then the Pete Crest, then the Robert Jacob, then Consolidated, and then Consolidated Yachts under the Rodstroms.
Okay. Dick, this is a question for me. So if you were invited to go back to the America's Cup today, would you race on one of these boats going 45 miles an hour?
60 miles an hour.
Okay, with you
off the wind, they have already clocked speeds over 60. Upwind, they're doing, maybe 40, a little more. And the answer would be absolutely. To sail on these, just to get that feeling is incredible. And because I already have one in the pocket, I already have that experience. So I wouldn't trade that. If someone said, which experience would you prefer? If you had to pick one or the other, I would stick with my time with 77, not for being nostalgic, but just there was a lot of involvement for each and every one of us. We weren't locked into just one position. We jumped around, we moved around. It was a different type of racing. This is absolutely a different type of racing. It's high speed, it's high tech, but me personally, I like the style of racing that we had back in '77. But these are exciting and fun to watch, and to be part of it and ride with them. Yeah, I'd do it.
And do you like the direction that the America's Cup has taken over the last 20 years? I think both you and my dad should answer this one.
Tom, why don't you go first since I just spoke?
I think that it's taken a completely different direction. As Dick said, back in the 12s, the last, before they became more commercialized, there was a more romantic, you might say, tinge to it. But now it's geared more for the spectator, and probably rightly so. Otherwise, it wouldn't get so popular with the general public. But watching them now is, watching them in the past, you couldn't watch a sailboat race. It'd be like watching a golf game. You'd really have to be in it to be interested. But now, just at the speed and what can happen, at any moment, would hold a lot of people's interest.
And that's a key point, Tom, is that for sailors, yeah, the old style was more involved and more things going on. There's tons of things going on here. Don't misunderstand my words. But spectators are critical. Why are spectators are critical? Because spectators allow commercialization. With commercialization, whether it's TV, whether it's just enormous, and that's money. These campaigns are costing probably about 150 million, at least above 100 million. They're out there building, designing, training, sailing for 3 years. We did it for one single season. We started in early spring and a little bit the year before. Our campaign was $2 million for 2 full boats, 2 full campaigns for $2 million. Again, that was 1977. But they need the sponsorship. People aren't going to, lay out individuals or even 150 million unless they're going to get a bang for their buck. So, to do an America's Cup in 23 minutes versus, an hour and a half that it took us to get around 24.3 miles. Of course, it's all about, advertising, and the product. And this product goes way outside the bounds of sailing. So therefore, you make money at it.
Just look at the boats and the sails with all the ads and the brand names on that. These people that are putting up the money want that recognition out there. And on slower boats that might be sailed very well, they're just not going to get that. In the old days, 30 and 40 years and prior, they had just the pure white sails and pure hulls, and the syndicates were not made up of the big corporations. I will remember a picture, though, of Reliance being hauled out at the Jacob Yard, and there was a catboat going by, and the owner of the boat must have had a company himself, because he had ads all over his sail. He knew that he was going to have pictures of Reliance, and if he figured if he got in the background, his product would be prominently displayed there. So.
All right, I have two or three more questions. Quick one for you, Dick. Where did the Courageous crew stay when they were on City Island?
Not on, we weren't, Courageous Crew wasn't on City Island, we were in Newport.
Okay.
And I had a beautiful picture of our estate that we stayed in, Conley Hall, which was part of Salve Regina Dormitory, but basically it was converted Tudor style mansion that was up in Newport, up on the rise from downtown Newport. And I did have it before my PowerPoint crashed. Lauren saved the day by saying, Dick, this is how you find one that was saved earlier in the day. But I lost some extra pictures. One of them was where we stayed. And with that, I actually stayed on the waterfront. There was like little cottage rooms right literally above the docks. And they wanted a couple of us from the crew to stay down there. So, gee, I had to spend my summer living on Bannister's Wharf on the waterfront the whole time. So I wasn't
Not so bad.
Not so bad.
Dad, did you work on any 12-meter sails?
Courageous. We made 3 spinnakers for them. And we went out and watched test sailing on them also. And I remember Frank DeSantis being out with us one time, old-time Ulmer and Durazzi and Lapland sailmaker. And Jack Sutphin, who was on Courageous at that time in '74, invited Frank over to take the helm on Courageous. And you couldn't imagine a bigger smile on anybody's face than Frank's doing that. But that was a lot of fun.
So the winner of the America's Cup, do they get any special privileges? For example, Anthony asks, could the holder of the cup mandate a nationality requirement?
The holder of the cup mandate a nationality requirement. There's rules set that are put together by all the competing members as to, or at least the defender and the challenger of record. They set the designs and the boats and some of the rules. And where in Bermuda, when Jimmy Spithill was sailing the America's Cup, to the best of my knowledge, and I think it's accurate, there was on the American representative boat, USA, there was not one American sailor. So that changed radically this time around. And the year before, or the time before in 2013, when they were in San Francisco, there was one American sailor, and that was Rome Kirby. And that was a first. His dad, Jerry, had sailed in the America's Cup back in the time periods when I was involved there. So, you know, great people, great sailors. And but the point being is that they're trying to address that. This time around, I think there's 60% must be nationals. So you're still, and I forget what the ratio is. It would be on the American or on the America's Cup site. We're hoping perhaps at some point that it becomes 100% nationals, but time will tell.
Yeah, maybe I'll be out there one day. Okay. Thank you so much both for the presentation and for all of the information. Thank you everyone who tuned in for this webinar and for all of the webinars or any version of the webinars. So happy that this worked out, and hopefully the museum will be opening our doors soon. But if not, hopefully we'll be able to do some more of these virtual presentations in the future. So that's it. That's a wrap.
And one last point, Lauren, because of COVID, the America's Cup was originally supposed to take place this Saturday, the 6th, but as you can see up top there, it was postponed. And hopefully if things break, because they want spectators on site, that's what the point is. At this point, they've postponed it till March 10th. So, you know, that may change, so be advised.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all.
See ya. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for working with dinosaurs.
Of course. It was quite the end of this series.
Woo. A little anxious in the beginning.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Bye.